Well, Chapter 8, The Alien's Lair. Woohoo! Guys, this is where we get into it. Woohoo! Okay, let's just start because I'm excited. Chapter 8, The Alien's Lair. I don't know how long we stood there, trying to build up enough courage to go in. I do remember looking up at the sky. It was as dark as black velvet, and the stars were like diamonds scattered across it. Which one of them did you come from, Broxholm? I thought. And why did you have to come here? I heard Peter sigh beside me. Isn't it wonderful? He asked, swinging his arms up and out to indicate the entire sky. Don't you want to go there? You've been reading too much science fiction, I said. Come on, let's get this over with. Sharp leaves scraped against our faces as we pushed our way through the hole in the hedge. On the other side, we dropped to our hands and knees and crawled across the lawn. Even though we were pretty sure Roxanne wasn't home, we didn't want anyone else to see us and interrupt our mission. The lawn was drenched with dew. By the time we reached the porch, the knees of my pants were soaked through and I was freezing. How are we going to get in? Whispered Peter. Good question. It may sound stupid, but I had been so worried about what we were doing, but I hadn't thought about how to do it. I don't know, I hissed back. How do people usually break into places? Peter looked at me in disgust. How would I know? He asked. I'm not a burglar. Well, neither am I snapped. I closed my eyes. Fighting wasn't going to get us anywhere. Let's circle the house, I said. Maybe we'll find an open window or something. We crept along the side of the house. As Peter played with his flashlight over the windows, I felt thankful for the hedge and that masked us from the street. Nothing on the sign, he whispered. Check down low, I said. Maybe one of the cellar windows is open. But they were all sealed shut. Peter gestured toward the back of the house. Just around the back corner, we found one of those slanting cellar doors. It was padlocked shut. But the wood was half rotted, and when Peter shook the lock, the whole thing came loose in his hand. He set it aside and carefully lifted the door. It creaked for an eternity as it came open. I found myself staring down into the well of a perfect blackness. Dark, I whispered. Sure is, said Peter. Then he took a step forward. I followed him, wondering if Broxholm had booby-trapped the place. I'm just kidding, guys. Then I wondered, what kind of booby-trap... I'm so sorry. What kind of booby-traps... Wait. Then I wondered what kind of booby-traps an alien would use. Lasers that would cut us off at the knees? Stun guns? Freeze rays? Hey, these guys had come here from another star system. Who knew what they could do? We walked down 8 concrete steps. At the bottom, we came to a wooden door so old it had a latch instead of a knob. Peter lifted the latch and pushed. Nothing. But his shoulder against the door. He put his shoulder against the door and shoved again. It swung open with an eerie creak. After you, madam, he whispered. Well, at least shine your flashlight in there, I hissed. He pointed his beam through the door. I couldn't see anything special, just a dusty cellar, the kind you'd expect in an old house. Let's go together, I whispered. Peter took pity on me, and we stepped through the door side by side. I don't think we're going to find anything down here, he said, shining his light around the cellar. I agreed, except for the furnace. The stairs up to the first floor, and the cobwebs. The space was completely empty. Without speaking, he headed for the stairway. I ran into a cobweb. I shivered when the wispy, clinging threads brushed over my forehead. You don't suppose Broxholm has any friends here, do you? Whispered Peter when we were about halfway up the stairs. I stopped. I don't think so, I said after a minute. He didn't mention any when he was talking to the guy in the spaceship. Peter nodded, but he had managed to make me even more nervous than I had been to begin with. What if there was another alien here? What would he do if he caught us snooping around? Where to? Asked Peter when we reached the top of the stairs. Let's try the kitchen, I said, remembering his idea about alien food. But when we opened the refrigerator, all we saw was a bunch of old cuts, a half-empty carton of milk, a bottle of ketchup, and 2 six-packs of beer. He sure doesn't eat like an alien, said Peter. Are you sure this guy is from another planet? Let's go upstairs, I said. I'll show you the thing I saw him talking into. Peter closed the refrigerator door, but before he would leave the room, he insisted on checking the cupboards. He even opened the peanut butter jar to see if it really had peanut butter in it, and not some kind of extraterrestrial goo. The second floor had 3 rooms. I had high hopes for the bathroom. I thought we might find some sort of weird shampoo there or something. But it was as disappointing as the kitchen. Even the medicine cabinet was filled with typical brand name items. Do you think Mr. Smith really uses Excedrin? Said Peter. Or is this just here to convince people he's a teacher? If he was stocking his house to full snoopers, he'd have put in some furniture, I said. The only place where we found anything even remotely alien was the room where I had seen the Broxholm talking to the man on the ship. The 2 speakers that looked like pieces of flat plastic were still hanging on the wall. I looked under the dressing table and found a switch. The switch Broxholm had used to tune in his ship. I reached out to touch it, then pulled my hand back. What if I somehow turned it on, and the man from the ship saw Peter and me standing there? Come on, said Peter. We might as well go. You don't believe me anymore, do you? I asked suddenly. Peter shrugged. This place is kind of weird, with no furniture and everything, but there's nothing that would make anyone think Mr. Smith is an alien. I believe that you believe what you told me, but whether it's true or not, he shrugged and turned to leave the room. Wait, I said, following him into the hall. We still didn't try that door. Peter swung his flashlight into the direction I was pointing. It's just the attic, he said. I knew that. I could tell by how narrow the door was, but that wasn't the point. So what if it's the attic? I said. Maybe Broxholm has something packed away up there. Come on, Peter. We've gone this far. We can't give up now. Oh, all right, said Peter. He opened the door and started up the stairway. When we got about halfway up the stairs, his head passed the level of the attic floor. I was walking so close that I bumped into him when he stopped. What is it? I whispered. When he didn't answer me, I pushed him out of the way. I pushed my way up beside him and cried out in horror. Oh, I remember what happens here, and you're just gonna have to listen to the next episode. So yeah, hope you enjoy it.